and the videos, shown on TV from Sderot and Ofakim and the Nova Festival, and we understood that the situation's out of control.
What would it have been like to spend 491 days in Hamas hell? An Israeli citizen captured on October 7th. Your wife is murdered. Your 2 teenage daughters are murdered. Your brother is murdered. And you are captured, tortured, and taken into Gaza, where you spend the next 16 months, again, 491 days, being starved, being tortured, being humiliated, and no idea if you're ever going to get out. What would that have been like? Where would you find the strength to endure? Today on Inside the Epicenter, we're going to tell you that story with a fascinating and exclusive interview with Israeli surviving hostage, the most famous Israeli hostage in this whole 2-year nightmare, Eli Sharabi. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg. Welcome to Inside the Epicenter, the flagship educational project of the Joshua Fund. The Joshua Fund, of course, is a ministry that Lynn and I founded it in 2006. Why? To educate and mobilize Christians in the United States and Canada and all over the world to understand how to bless Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus. And part of blessing Israel and her neighbors is helping people understand a biblical perspective of God's love and prophetic plan for Israel and the Jewish people, but also what is God's love for the neighbors. Now, in this unique episode of Inside the Epicenter, a podcast, by the way, that over the last couple of years has soared from, a podcast that not that many people knew about to a podcast in the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. And we're very grateful because it's showing us that you guys who are listening are interested in long form, in-depth conversations about what really is happening in Israel and in the Arab and Muslim world, as well as Iran, and about issues that affect what's going on in the Middle East from a spiritual perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, from an economic perspective, all kinds of different angles we cover here on Inside the Epicenter. But we're evangelical Christians. We are Israeli citizens. We live here in Jerusalem, and we are trying to help you understand what's happening here, why it matters, and giving you a biblical perspective by taking you into conversations that you might never have a chance to have, by taking you inside the epicenter. So on today's program, we're going to play the audio of part 1 of my conversation with Eli Sharabi. Eli is, again, as I say, the most famous Israeli, arguably, that survived of the 251 hostages that were taken. Most famous because he's the only one of the hostages that has actually written a memoir. He actually wrote a book that became a huge monster bestseller here in Israel, the fastest selling, biggest selling book in the modern history of Israel. It's called Hostage. And then that was in Hebrew. Then it came out in the United States in English, worldwide in English, on October 7th, just about a month and a half ago or so, 2 months ago. So it hit the New York Times bestseller list. President Trump invited Eli Sharabi to come to the White House and tell him his story. He was invited, Eli Sharabi was invited to speak at the UN Security Council and tell his story to a relatively hostile audience, I might add. The British Prime Minister invited Eli Sharabi to tell him his story at 10 Downing Street. Eli's late wife, who was killed by Hamas, was a British citizen. And his daughters were British citizens. And so that there's that connection as well. And so we're very grateful that the Lord opened up the opportunity for us to sit down, for me to sit down and interview Eli Sharabi. So let's begin with part 1 of our conversation. This is a story that every single Christian needs to hear. This is the story of Eli Sharabi, an Israeli civilian who was captured, brutalized, tortured in his home in Kibbutz Be'eri, right on the border of Gaza, on the morning of October 7th, dragged into Gaza, and he spent 491 days in Hamas hell. Good evening and welcome to the Rosenberg Report. This is a story that every Israeli knows, okay? Because Ali Sharabi not only became a major story with all the other hostages during the 2 years of this the horror in Gaza, but Ali Sharabi is the only Israeli surviving hostage to write a book. And this has become the fastest selling, biggest selling book in the history of modern Israel. This has become a huge monster bestseller here. The book is called Hostage. It is the only story of a survivor from the moment of the Hamas attack on the morning of October 7th all the way through the 491 days of his horrific, disgusting, terrifying ordeal. And then where does he go from here? The story has become huge here, but not only here. The book got translated into English, became a big New York Times bestseller in the United States, and yet most Christians, most evangelical Christians, do not know the name Ali Sharabi, and they don't know the book yet, but you must read it. I've read it from cover to cover. It was one of the most fascinating and terrifying and yet hopeful books that I have ever read, and I strongly encourage you to pick up a copy in hardcover or on audio and to read it or to listen to it. You're going to get a story that Ali Sharabi shared in the Oval Office with President Trump when Trump invited him to come and meet with him. And Sharabi thanks President Trump for all that he did to set Sharabi and the others free. This is a story that Ali Sharabi told at the UN Security Council just weeks after his release. And he's begun to share it in the media. 491 days in Hamas hell. The story of Ali Sharabi. Ali, what an honor to meet you.
Thank you very much.
I praise God that you are alive. And it's an honor just to sit with you. I read the book cover to cover. It is so moving. And I am encouraging every Christian in the world to read this book, to share this book, because it's such an important story. In this first show, I just want to start with who you are, what you suffered, and what you lost, okay? So you wake up at 6:29 on October 7th, you're getting messages, you're starting to hear rockets. What happens? Your world gets blown apart that day.
Yeah, but we used to all these missiles from time to time, and so we pick up the girls from their room to the safe room, Lian and I, and we just waited there. We were thought going to be 5 minutes,
right.
And half an hour later, we'll still be in the safe room because the alarm didn't stop, and there was a message from the emergency team of the kibbutz that says that there's a possibility that terrorists infiltrated Be'eri. Right. So we need to stay in the safe room.
Are you hearing automatic gunfire yet?
Not yet, okay. Not yet. But and then
so that must be a shock to read this.
Yes, it was
never happened
really
before.
Weirdness. And said the girls, I don't know, but probably in half an hour. Don't worry, we'll be outside from here and we'll start our day. And it's continue, and then the videos, showed on TV. From Sderot and Ofakim and the Nova Festival, and we understood that the situation's out of control.
You're seeing messages from fellow kibbutz members in Be'eri?
Not yet, just family and friends that was very worried at that time. We said to them, we are okay, don't worry.
Okay.
And then after this, 2 hours in the safe room, we start to hear some gunfires, and we understood that there's many terrorists in the kibbutz, and these messages from the kids start to show in this
kids,
WhatsApp
you mean
groups.
neighbors?
Yes, neighbors
in Be'eri.
And said that somebody shot dad, somebody shot mom, our house is burning, and things like that. And then we start to understand, Lian and I, that they're on their way to our house as well.
You made some decisions at that point as a couple.
Yes.
What did you decide?
Yeah, we presume that I'll be kidnapped, but we're not going to fight with them. We better not to fight with them. We have no weapons in the house or something like that. So it was the best way to protect the girls is not to fight.
Okay.
And we
surrender as soon
yes,
as
and we
they arrive.
presumed that British passport, Leanne and the girls would protect them.
Why did you presume that?
Because, you know, the conflict is between the Israelis and the Palestinians or Jewish and Arabs or something like that, but they are not Jewish, they are not Israelis.
Leanne was a British volunteer who'd come at like 20 years old, and you guys had met.
Yes.
She only planned to come for a few months,
yes,
right? And then you guys fell in love.
We fell in love, and we raised our 2 daughters in the kibbutz, and it was an amazing place, you know, a piece of heaven for us. And unfortunately, it's become it's turned to an hell this day. And so they arrived after 4 hours. We've been in the safe room, and the army didn't show up that we presumed that or we expected. So we were very disappointed that the army didn't show.
Yeah.
And instead of that,
it must have been bizarre.
Yes.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
Suddenly it was 10 terrorists in our house, and 2 of them grabbed me, 3 or 4 of them grabbed the girls and to the kitchen area, and all the rest we've been in the house and waited that Leanne will get dressed because we would jump from our bed.
Right.
And they were terrified, Leanne and the girls. I tried to calm them down, and it was all calm in the house, and we were sure that our plan is working. And 3 or 4 minutes later, I understand Arabic, so the commander of this unit, of this terrorist, told them to take me out of the house. So it was the moment I understood I'm being kidnapped, and just shouted at the girls that to calm them down, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And
that was your last communication?
Yes, last communication, last time I've seen
you
Leanne and the girls.
You couldn't possibly have imagined that you wouldn't see them.
No.
Now you get taken into Gaza, believing, okay, it's bad, but they'll be safe.
Yes.
And you got a hard road ahead. I mean, literally, you're being beaten, you're being dragged, you're being put in a car, taken into Gaza. What are you thinking? Are you thinking this is a temporary, a few days? Are you thinking, I mean, what are you thinking?
Yes.
What are your emotions at that point?
First of all, on the way to the car, I've seen some like hundreds of terrorists in this neighborhood, on our neighborhood, just coming in and out from every house, celebrating, filming themselves, you know, joking and things like that. And I've seen that. And so I understood the situation is bad. I understood I'm not on my own. I will not be, you know, the only hostage in Gaza. I was sure about that. And so I presume, okay, in something like that, you're not going to be years in Gaza. I presume it will be a month, something like that. Unfortunately, it took 16 months to release me. 491 days, yes. And some other my fellow hostages were more than 700 days. The first stop in Gaza was in a mosque, and the mob of civilians that are outside of this mosque succeed to take me away from my captors.
You describe in the book several times, but in this time, you were almost more scared. You were more scared of the mob
and
what they would do to you.
Hamas was more scared about that.
Hamas was scared.
Yes, was scared from the civilians. Because they, you know, Hamas got an order to keep us safe, and because they want their prisoners back. Okay. And
you're a pawn. You're a strategic asset.
Yes, I'm an asset, for them.
Yeah.
For the civilians, I'm not, and they just want to kill me. Yes,
they want to kill you. They want to rip you. You describe fearing that they will just rip you apart.
It was
literally
kids on top of me with their shoes, you know, hitting me on my head. Fortunately, the captors succeed to take me into the mosque and interrogate me there, and then we continue to another 3 or 4 stops to confuse the army, and we arrived to a Palestinian family house.
Yeah.
And we've been there for the next 52 days.
Reading this part, it thought, okay, it's not good. but of all the other scenarios,
Yes.
It seemed the least bad that you were in. As a journalist, I was brought by the idea into Khan Yunis, into a newly discovered tunnel at that point. And so I spent a day with just a small group of other journalists going into tunnels, going into Yahya Sinwar's private lair at that point. So most people don't get a chance. I don't know if a chance is the right word, but I got, for just one day, to feel how humid, how dark, how filthy the quarters were. I went into a cage that 12 Israeli hostages were in, but I also saw the living quarters of the terrorists, and beautiful tile work, beautiful bathrooms, kitchens, running water, electricity, gas. Like they didn't live badly for their choice of life, but for the Israelis, it was horrible. So I have just a little bit of a sense, but for you being taken at 52 days mark from what was, you had fresh air, you had a family, you were fed reasonably well compared to what happens. You're not really being tortured or starved yet.
Yes.
And you describe in the book a very deep fear of ever being taken into those tunnels, and suddenly you describe, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's about to happen.
Yes. That was, it was my worst nightmare. It looked like the perfect grave. I refused in the beginning to climb down. And
you literally tell them no.
Yes, I told them yes, and start to argue with them. But after 30, 40 seconds, they got upset with me, loaded their guns and pointed my head. And then I remember my promise to my girls that I will come back and chose life again.
Okay, wow. Let's take a break there and go to a commercial break, and then we'll come back and continue with this conversation with Eli Sharabi. Just before we go to the break, I just want to encourage you, especially as we're in this, we're coming up to the end of the calendar year, and I would encourage you, if you can, to give financially to the Joshua Fund. A part of what the Joshua Fund does, right, is fund All Israel News, which is our news gathering operation, one that I want you to subscribe to. It's free at allisraelnews.com. But All Israel News and the Joshua Fund then work very closely with the Rosenberg Report to get these big interviews, and not only do them, make them available on cable television through Trinity Broadcasting Network, TBN, but also through the podcast, through All Israel News, and so forth. So we're coming up to the end of the year. We've got huge needs already coming out of the war, and there are new opportunities growing all the time as ministries here in the land and in the region are assessing what does the post-war ministry environment look like, and what are new opportunities to serve people, to love people, to minister to people in the name of Jesus. And so that there are a lot of needs, even more than during the war. So if you can give even a one-time gift, that would be wonderful. We'd appreciate it. Go to joshuafund.com and you can make that gift securely online, tax deductible if you're American or Canadian citizen. But if you can become a monthly donor to the Joshua Fund, we would really appreciate that. That's called becoming an Epicenter ally. And you can find out about that as well. Giving $50, $75, $100 or more, we would appreciate it, because as you're hearing, Israelis are traumatized by what they went through. Obviously, the hostages themselves and their families, but also the soldiers and the whole nation, and the Palestinians as well, and the Lebanese. And so that's what the Joshua Fund's trying to do. And I hope this program is giving you a deeper insight of what it was like to be captured on October 7th and dragged into those terror dungeons under Gaza and to suffer for 491 days. We'll be back in just a moment with the rest of part one of our interview with Eli Sharabi. But if you can go and make a donation at joshuafund.com and become a monthly giver, an Epicenter ally, we would deeply appreciate this, especially at this Christmas season. Thank you. There's a passage of scripture that I shared with Eli Sharabi when I sent him a thank you note after the interview, and we'll get back to the rest of the interview in just a moment. But I just our staff has a daily prayer call. The Joshua Fund staff, our Israeli staff, and our American staff, and our British staff, and one of the young women on our team in the States was leading us through Psalm 18 one particular day. There was a few verses from Psalm 18 that just touched me so much because I was right in the middle of these conversations with Eli Sharabi, and I just want to share them with you because I texted them to Eli as part of my thanks. It's Psalm 18 verses 16 through 19, and it reads as follows. The Lord sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth also into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. And as you meditate on those verses from Psalm 18, verses 16 through 19, would you join me in praying for Eli Sharabi? His mother and his sister are in his life, but his wife was murdered. His two daughters were murdered. His brother was murdered, and he's trying to figure out what his life should be going forward. We need to pray for him and pray that the Lord would bring deep supernatural healing physically, emotionally, and most of all, spiritually. Welcome back to Inside the Epicenter. Let's get back now to part one of my exclusive interview with Eli Sharabi, a resident of Kibbutz Be'eri, right on the Gaza border, and the author of the only book written by a hostage called Hostage. Let's stop at that point. I want to go further as we have this conversation about what you experienced, what you suffered in those tunnels. But I also want to talk about what got ripped away from you. Would you talk about Leanne, your wife? Talk about Noya and Yahel,
yes,
because I want our audience of Christians who care very deeply, love Israel and the Jewish people very deeply. They don't know you yet. You're one of the most famous people in Israel now. Your book is a huge bestseller because people they're craving to know more. How did you survive? What happened to you? But most Christians, even though they follow the story overall, they don't know you and they don't know Leanne or the girls. And I think they need to.
Leanne was a very British, proud woman, love her cup of tea and beer with her friends. Aww. And we had great life together. And I was...
How many years were you married?
We've been married 23 years. And we've been together 28 years. And it was an amazing time. And I was very lucky to have her. And she was immediately become Israeli.
It's not Jewish.
Not Jewish, but after 6 months, she was
Israeli.
She was Israeli. She knew the language, and she was amazing. She loved the kibbutz. She loved her friends. She got, she missed her family that in England and in Canada. And we raised two beautiful daughters, Noya and Yahel. And
what can you tell me about them?
Noya was all heart, and she used to work with autistic kids. She used to volunteer twice a week for 3 years before that happened, and that was her passion, and to help other people, and she was amazing. She loved music. We used to go to concerts, to Israeli singers' concerts.
She's a teenager,
yes.
16 or so?
Amazing woman. And Yahel was our little boy. She used to play football.
A lot of passion, a lot of energy.
Yes, loads of energy, and liked extreme things to do. She used to
12?
skydive.
Yeah, she asked you,
skydiving.
could I skydive for my birthday?
Yes, and we were all terrified just to look at her in the air.
That was only about a year or so before.
A year
all
before,
this.
yes, and we waited for her just, to all this.
You didn't jump with her?
No way. And she loved scuba diving, and she just finished on August 23 her course, and I've been with her in a lot. And we promised each other to dive to do scuba diving in Thailand. And I think 2 months ago, I did it for her.
Oh, wow.
And yes,
Let's skip ahead, because when I read the book, I will be honest, I didn't go back to check your story. I wanted to read it through. I thought I knew your story, but we've been dealing with 251 different people and trying to know their stories and what's going on with them and who.
Yes.
And I said, I'm not going to do any background. I'm just going to read the book through as anybody would. So I kept hoping. And we get to the part where you find out that you're going to be released. And you have made this choice. Well, first of all, you made a promise. I'm going to come back. I'll be back. And then you make choices all the way along. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to sink into despair, because Leanne and these girls, they need you.
Yes.
And they don't know what your status is. So you're like, I'm going to get back to them. I'm just, whatever it takes, I'm going to get back to them. And now you're finding out that you're going to be released. Would you describe the literal release? You're meeting a Red Cross representative finally. The Red Cross has never come to see you. And you meet some Israeli officers and social worker. You're excited.
I was very excited. It was a roller coaster emotional day, because it should be my happiest day since I was.
You're being released from
yes, for 491 days. You just imagine this moment like your happiest moment ever, and I was very excited.
You've literally dreamt of this moment,
yes.
What it's going to be like.
And actually, in this ceremony in Deir el-Balach, just before we transferred
the
to
Hamas ceremony,
yes,
where
they asked me how I feel that I'm going to meet my wife and my daughters, and of course I was very happy about that, excited about that. And the moment I arrived to the IDF, and this social worker approached to me and introduced herself and said to me that my mother and my sister are waiting for me. And I told her just to bring Leanne and the girls. And
did that seem like a strange sentence to you? Or it went too quickly for you to process
I didn't really want to believe that. It was, of course, it was all quickly for me. And I said to her, just bring me Leanne and my daughters. And she said, well, your mother and your sister will tell you. And of course, you don't need to tell anything anymore. And that the worst scenario happened for me. And Leanne and the girls didn't survive October 7. And I'm a very practical person. And I always, it was a possibility for me.
Yeah.
But it was, I put it deep inside of me, and I didn't really want to believe that.
You had even told one of your fellow hostages, some young guys. You were 51 when you were captured, and there were young guys in their young 20s, and they were weeping. They were having a hard time just settling themselves. I mean, it's a horrible situation, but you were like almost being a father to them, telling them, look, you just got to focus. And they said, well, when are you going to cry? And you said, when I know I'm safe, when I know I'm nowhere near these guys, these evil monsters anymore, then I'll let myself down. And as the IDF tells you, you are now safe, but you're also learning that Leanne and the girls have been murdered. Yeah. What happens inside of you?
It was like a hammer on my head, but I was crying for 5 minutes. But then
sobbing. I mean, you're really describing just weeping,
of
like
course.
Beyond.
Yes, weeping. But and she hugged me and tried to calm me down. And but after 5 minutes, I just remember that I can choose again. I need to choose again if I want, because all 491 days, you have loads of choices. People think that if you've been kidnapped, you lose control, 100%. And for me, it's not the truth, because, okay, I don't choose what to eat or when or how much or how can I walk, when I can walk to the bathroom or something like that. But I was free in my mind, and I can count days, and I can think about my family, and I can choose to be optimistic or not.
You got to know your fellow hostages. You so much so that when you got out, one of your first calls was to the parents of one of the guys that you had to say goodbye to, that they had not permitted him to be released yet.
Alon Oil's family, yes, of course. It was my moral duty to do that. In the first moment I was released, to talk with them and say to them that he's okay and he's going to be, he's going to survive that, and I'm sure about that, and he has enough tools to do that, and the ability that he can do that now, because they remember a very delicate young guy, and I needed to tell them that he had a real process of how to survive, and
you'd helped him with
and
that.
he can do that, But for me, it was again, I could let the grief and my loss to bury me. At the same moment, she let me know about my family, or to choose to move on. And again, I'm a very practical person, and I know I can't do anything to bring back Liano and the hell at the same moment, and I understood that. But I'm here, and life is still here, and I love life.
Well, I hope that was helpful to you. I know it was hard to listen to, but to hear from a survivor of those Hamas hellish dungeons is pretty powerful. I mean, to sit with Eli Sharabi was pretty powerful. I read his book entirely from the beginning to the end, and I believe this is a story that every Christian needs to hear. I actually believe this is a book, the book Hostage, that every Christian needs to read, and I would encourage you to purchase a copy in hardcover or ebook or audio formats and read or listen to the book Hostage by Eli Sharabi to understand much more about what he went through. Because when you understand what he went through, you'll understand what all the other hostages went through and what the nation is going through and why all this matters, why the healing and hopeful ministry of the Joshua Fund is so important. And I would encourage you not just to get a copy of Hostage for yourself, but I know it seems like maybe an odd Christmas present, but I would encourage you to buy copies of this for family and friends, because I think it's important for them as well. And I hope you'll listen to this podcast and share it with others, but also listen to it with family and friends. If your kids, make your own assessment of whether your kids are old enough and mature enough to listen to this. But it's so important that people really understand what really happened on that horrific day, October 7th, 2023, but also what's happened in the 2 years since. Well, don't miss part 2 of my interview with Eli Sharabi. We'll be releasing that as a podcast soon. In the meantime, I want to just thank you for your prayers. I want to thank you for your encouragement of this show by listening and by sharing this with others. And if you can be a financial supporter of the Joshua Fund, you'll help make this podcast possible and available and expand it to others, as well as all the other ministry work we do, investing in the local church in Israel and the Arab world, humanitarian relief, working with the neighbors, educating the church around the world to understand what in the world is going on in this part of the world. What's God's perspective? What should our perspective be? And how can we get involved in being a true biblical blessing? You can go to joshuafund.com. Again, joshuafund.com. And there's a big donate button in the top right-hand corner, and you can click on there, and it'll show you what are your options. And I would encourage you, if possible, to become a monthly donor at $50, $75, $100 or more if you can, and that's becoming an Epicenter ally. Then we know you're not only giving, but you're giving and you're going to be with us over the next year, the next 2 years, 3 years, what have you. Obviously, if you can only give a one-time gift, we deeply appreciate it as we come to the end of the year and we're looking at all these ministry needs that are expanding. Okay, Lord, we trust you. We want to serve the local believers so they can be a blessing to the people of Israel, the people, the Palestinian people and others in the region. But Lord, you need to provide through your people financially. This is a Joshua fund, right? It's a fund. So obviously, in addition to prayer, the number one thing that we would ask from you is to become a financial partner with us. Again, you can go to joshuafund.com and make a year-end gift, and hopefully it will be a recurring monthly gift as well. Thank you. Thank you so much for standing with us. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, challenging though it is. And again, I encourage you to share this with family and friends on social media. From Jerusalem, this is Joel Rosenberg thanking you. And Lynn and I will see you on the next episode of Inside the Epicenter.
I'm Joel Rosenberg. On your left, you'll find some videos we've chosen specifically for you. We look forward to partnering with you to bless Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus.